Hello everybody. In today's video we are going to look at the sad reality that a lot of Christians still die for the faith. This is not going to be a teaching, this is not going to go in deep. I just want to give you some information so you can become aware of the fact that Christians are still facing persecution. There are still people dying for their faith. And how can we help them? How can we take up this battle that we are in and fight for the kingdom of Christ so that we can aid those who are under persecution, but also fight for the progression of Christ's kingdom in this age that we are living in, that most of us think that persecution doesn't exist anymore. Most of us, when we think of persecution, we think of something that happened long ago and far away. We think of people like Polycarp. Now, a lot of people don't even know who Polycarp was, but Polycarp was John's disciple. And as an old man already in his 80s, he received a vision that he is going to be burned to the stake for his faith. And he tried to escape a couple of times, but God didn't allow him to escape, and he received the conviction that God called him to go to the stake. So he allowed the Romans to capture him, to arrest him, and in the trial, the Romans really didn't want to kill this old man, and they pleaded with him, please renounce your atheism so we don't have to kill you. We don't want to kill an old man. But Polycarp, although he was old, was still filled with a lot of guts, and he pointed towards the Romans and said, away with the atheists. So, obviously they found him guilty of atheism under Roman law because he didn't accept the Roman gods. He believed that Christ alone was king and was God. So they took him to the stake. But when they wanted to tie him to the stake, he said, that's not necessary. I will stand there on my own. And he willingly stood there while they set him on fire. And we know that when the fire started, the fire didn't burn him. So ultimately they stabbed him with a spear or with a sword, and they killed him. And Polycarp is one of the most famous martyrs, with one of the most interesting stories that I can't go in depth with in this video, but we think about persecution in those terms. It was the Romans, or it was long ago in the Middle Ages. But persecution is still happening today, and I'm going to give you 5 examples that it's still happening. And to prove that I'm not making this up, I'm also including some of the articles that prove what's happening in the world. The first one is June 22nd of this year. A suicide bomber struck the Mar Elias Greek Orthodox Church in Damascus during a Sunday worship, killing around 25 people and wounding more than 60 others, including children. The victims were unarmed worshippers in prayers. Authorities point to the Islamic State involvement, and the attack has left Syria's Christian minority afraid and questioning their safety under the newest Islamist-led government. So you can see this is currently happening. This isn't old news. On the 1st of June, Boko Haram abducted Reverend Alphonsus Afina, a Nigerian Catholic priest who had recently returned from Alaska. The ambush near Gwoza included a rocket attack and multiple other kidnappings, highlighting a pattern of targeting Christian clergy. The next one that happened this year was on February the 12th in Kasanga, North Kivu. Insurgents linked to the Islamic State stormed a Protestant church, abducted 70 Christian villagers, and beheaded them in masses. Her bodies were recovered 2 days later. Now, this was documented by Open Doors and the Vatican, but the UN is still investigating for further verification. And this report from Open Doors International, but also from other sources, But it revealed that in 2024, over 4,500 Christians in Africa were killed for their faith. 114,000 were displaced, and more than 107,000 churches attacked or destroyed, with hotspots in Nigeria, the DRC, Burkina Faso, Mozambique, and Sudan. Now, in 2024 to 2025, attacks against Christians in India surge. Reports detailed 640 verified incidents in 1 year, including mob attacks on churches, arrests under anti-conversion laws, and false accusations. In states like Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, which I probably butchered those names, but pastors were imprisoned on dubious charges, revealing growing hostility currently happening in our world. Now, when we look at the Bible to see how are we supposed to react towards persecution, because it's not something churches really talk about a lot more anymore, especially in the West, where persecution seems to us like something distant in the past. So a lot of us need to be reminded, what does the Bible teach us about these brothers in persecution? Hebrews 13 verse 3 says, "Remember the prisoners, as though you were fellow prisoners. Remember the mistreated, as though you yourselves are being mistreated in the body." Here the context is that we have to remember them, we have to think about them, we have to pray for them, we have to support them in any way we can. This links into Matthew 25:31 to 40, where Jesus says, "Now when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne, and all the nations will be gathered before him. And he will separate them from one another like a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on the right hand and the goats on the left. And then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you are blessed by my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me as a guest. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you came to me.' And then the righteous will answer him, saying, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you as a stranger and welcome you as a guest, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick in prison and come to you?' And the king will answer and say to them, 'Truly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did it to me.'" In this passage, Jesus makes it clear that caring for those who are suffering, especially fellow believers, is not optional. Caring for our fellow church in persecution, our fellow church that is suffering, is like caring for Christ himself, because they are part of Christ's body, and we will be rewarded for it in eternity. But one aspect that this passage is not talking about, and I think we need to think about, is what if the king comes back and we weren't doing any of these things? And we didn't support those in persecution. We didn't think about those who are suffering. I think in the same way that those will be rewarded that was loyal in this task, there is going to be some kind of negative effect for those who didn't follow this command. There is, in my mind, no question about it, but that's speculation and you can make up your own mind about it. How can we help those Christians in persecution? I would say the easiest way would be to pray for them, to keep them in your prayers. When you hear about these stories, when you get all of these news articles in your news feed online, on your phone or on your computer, pray for these Christians. Also, there are organizations that is working in those countries and already supporting those people under persecution, and you can help those organizations to do their jobs by supporting them, by giving them funds. Two organizations I'm familiar with that does great work is Open Doors and OM, or Operation Mobilization. Feel free to look into them, but you don't need to support those specific organizations. Support any organization you know that is busy already working in those parts of the world. Or even maybe become a missionary yourself and go help spread the gospel, bring relief, whatever. If you feel God's call on your heart to go there and you have something to offer to them, you have a responsibility to bring it to them. You cannot ignore them. You cannot ignore the task that God laid upon us as the modern church. But also, I think the most important one is to keep spreading the gospel. Keep preaching the word, even where you are, as you are going, even if you're not in one of these countries. And if you are in one of those countries, do not give up, do not lose hope. Keep spreading the gospel. The solution to this is not political. The solution to this, even though a lot of Christians might feel like it sometimes, is not to go and get rid of Islam. The solution to this is that we need to share the gospel so people can be saved, so they can become part of the church, so the whole world can be united in Christ. And we are tasked by Christ himself to go and make disciples of all nations. And I think this will be the most effective method of dealing with persecution. Keep preaching the gospel.